Thank you very much, Laia. This is very inspiring, and this is aligned really of the work we're doing. And again, having Barcelona and Catalonia as a key region for a brain positive territory and city, it's essential to bring forward in the next exercises that we are doing within the global brain economy movement. Now we would like to get into interactive discussion with you and with all the partners and panelists and discussants, led by my colleague Yara Saab, Director of EMEA. Please.
Thanks very much. Good afternoon, everyone. Good morning, those of us still with us online. It's been a very rich, dense discussion. So we're very aware also for everyone's brain health as well that this we'll want to make sure that we wrap up this conversation in a way that's most helpful going forward. A couple of reflections on my end. Kaisa, a lot of the insights that you've provided made me think that a lot of the challenges that you've observed to brain health are actually some of the characteristics that a lot of us identify with cities when we talk about noise pollution, air pollution, loneliness, lack of community. These feel like very strong characteristics that the rural community has actually identified as a solution for better living. So I think there's a question for us as well of how do you include what we've always known in a non-urban context to ensure more of a well-being oriented lifestyle. And so there's a question for us naming that we're expected to have more than 70% of the globe living in an urban context by 2050. So that means the questions that we are addressing today are clearly ones that will be defining the great majority of the people worldwide, particularly, and we're going very quickly towards that number. Jemima, you've made a really interesting reflection on whether or not we need to adopt a new brain health lens to the different sectors that we're involved in, or is there a question of having a kind of a specific standalone decision-making mechanism around ensuring that there's brain positivity in the urban context? And your message to us was clear that there's a question of adding that lens to the decision-making processes that are already in place so that we can avoid those silos. One simple question that I think Upali has raised is just one that I think in the next few minutes I'd love for us to explore, is that why aren't we able to move forward with more of those examples of brain positive cities? It's a very simple question. It has very different and complex answers to them. Some of them are ones of governance. Faye, you've referred to the question of governance very clearly. I think finance, there's been a lot of different spaces where we've had discussions with financiers from both different types of private sector actors, but also, and we've heard from Laia, the question of the leadership when it comes to public finance and commitment in investing in a brain positive urban context. And so, yeah, the question to the room a bit is, if you were to identify one key element that could convince decision makers, because we've also talked about leadership, right? That question of leadership being some of it bottom up. We've heard cases from our Canadian colleagues about the playbook. What do you need to do? What are the key solutions for communities to introduce brain health within its urban decision making? And we've heard quite a lot of ideas around a top-down approach as well, of what is the role of national, regional, and municipal stakeholders in this respect. And so if there's one key message that we can take away from the room today in the next 5 to 7 minutes, what would be your key recommendation for a decision maker? I think Laia made a really good point around messaging, around what's the vocabulary that you use to be able to reach out to a broader public outside of our bubble when it comes to particularly the broader public. A few colleagues, I think, Karma, you spoke about the super blocks as well. There has been really big debates, and I'm being a little bit provocational here. There are debates as to whether or not these super blocks are favoring just the elite that live in the center of the city and are able to move around because they have the capacity to be able to live in spaces where they work and in the center of the city, and that has undermined the capacity of those who live outside of the urban areas to be able to move around. And so there's a question around the matter of inequalities, Reem, that you've raised as well. And so how do we de-elitify this agenda and make it, and also to Pierluigi, your reference to culture not being an elite agenda, but really being one that is in the more basic parts of the Maslow's hierarchy of needs and not considering it as one of the very top. I know there's a lot of different reflections. All of those are inspired by the really important insights of everyone in the room. But if we can just go away with some specific ideas of what would be one key message you would like for decision makers to respond to Upali's question of why don't we have more brain positive cities and how we can get there. I would have loved to have an international cooperation question as well. I think that's next. Karma, you've done a lot of work in your past life around development. I think we have an opportunity with our colleagues from Shanghai to think about the role of city to city. Marco, you've mentioned the superpower of cities is that capacity to be able to work beyond the walls of a city and look at collaboration. And we've seen the leadership of cities in other spaces of development, climate, health, water. What are the learnings that we can get from an international cooperation models perspective? I would keep that for maybe another meeting around the international cooperation. I think there's a lot of questions that came up that could be relevant, and particularly having a broader conversation beyond a particularly global north framed context and looking at also leadership coming from developing countries as well. But yeah, a question back to the floor. What would be your key message to decision makers to unblock this? Yes, please, Karma.
Just first of all, I think that should be not working in silos. Public administrations usually just work in this kind of silos. That's what I was mentioning, the mission-oriented or the pact. It's this idea of putting all the stakeholders together and having each one has a responsibility. So it's not the public administration that has to do, but everyone has a role and has some project to respond that. Then there's the question of the I think it's quite tricky. The idea of using neuroscience on urban planning, it's like a tricky issue. You can finally manipulate. So you can use that for manipulating people. So I think that's why in public policy, there's some kind of restraint to use really a lot because it can be seen as a manipulation of people. So I think it's very difficult to find the balance. And then there's an idea that Laia I think that it's quite strange that in all our interventions, no one talked about AI or the digital world. And we know that most of our young people and the rest of society is just is living in another place. It's not in the physical one. So I think that's the first thing. So how do you get people working as a community if no one, the community is digital? I think that's very difficult and has to do with mental health a lot. So just wanted to say that.
Thank you very much, Karma. Kathy.
Just really briefly, because I am very sorry, I'm going to have to leave. I have a meeting. I've been thinking this whole time that part of the issue with brain health, brain positive cities is what we encounter in the field of planetary health. When you speak of planetary health, people are, what are you talking about? And then basically coming from a discussion on this just the other day, when you are improving housing insulation to prevent heat deaths, you're also doing planetary health, and you're also improving brain health. Mm-hmm. I know, Reem, that you have done some work around with planetary health. I would encourage you to recruit researchers and people who are active in promoting planetary health because it's the same goal. And I guess I would just, in line with the silos, co-benefits, speak in terms of co-benefits, health, environment, brain health, different kinds of health issues. And the medical community, the healthcare sector has really woken up about this in these last years. Mm-hmm. So there's the alliance in Spain, Alianza América para la Salud Planetaria. I'm sure they would be good allies. There's Healthcare Without Harm internationally. So yeah, it's just, we're a movement and there are so many different facets of it. And here at Somehow, I think also they had some issues thinking about the facets of without specifically talking about brain health, but to promote it and building this site. So thank you for the invitation. Thank you for being at Sao and hope to continue the conversation. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Kathy. I think the question of planetary health has also been quite heavily picked up, particularly by the city of Barcelona through the Mercat del País initiative working on planetary well-being and making sure that there's also this broader connection between human environmental human environmental and planetary well-being. Any other reflections from the room? Faye?
Something to the policy makers is to invest more in prevention and not only in treatment, because by creating healthy urban environments, the profit will be much bigger for everyone. That's all.
Thank you very much. Very important point around a question also of investment, right? This is an investment in prevention. So what is the cost of inaction, right, as well? And that's something that I think part of the data building within this community is also important, of understanding what would be the cost of inaction versus the cost of investment in preventative measures. Any other reflections, Jemima?
Just a small thought that I have on it, which is sometimes simplifying the message to policymakers. And I think when you kind of think of the healthy behaviors that we all know about, like nutrition and exercise being one of them, and then thinking about how that people just think of physical exercise, but actually mental exercise is within that, and that should be something which they're looking to invest in the same way that physical activity 30, 40 years ago wasn't seen as something that should be done. And also always, I think cost savings helps shift policymakers' mindsets.
Thank you very much. Yes, for the simplification of the message. Anyone online who wished to offer some few last thoughts before we wrap up? Yes, Marta.
Thank you. So I think it has been really insightful and relevant that today we had the opportunity, to see on a multidisciplinary view from neuroscience applied to cities, how can we develop this brain economy and these brain positive cities. And I was thinking as well that the relevance, right, to move forward together, maybe with the OMS, with the General Health Organization, that we can try to find out a way to organize a kind of a city league where we can move forward all this impact, all this relevance, all these calculations that we should put into the validation and KPIs demonstration of what we're trying to show, and in the different verticals, so education, art, architecture, climate, etc., and how to see as well, as Karma was saying, right, of the impact of the AI as well in the youth and infant new citizen commerce. And from this perspective, we can maybe benchmark more frequently and put that onto the agenda and the debate of the policy makers as well, just as a suggestion.
Great. Yes, thank you. There've been quite a few success stories around city alliances around specific themes. Obviously, the C40 for climate is one of the most successful examples of what you can do, and Barcelona has been particularly a great champion of that. And so, to your points, I think there's learning from those models and being able to see how do you coalesce around particular collective objectives, and to be able to have brain positive cities being the norm rather than the exception that of a success story that we can point to. But obviously, this is to Laya's point around this being a long-term, decades-long investment. I think we need to also understand what the stakes are and what the investments in terms of time and effort and community and ecosystem building requires. If there are no further thoughts, yes, please.
Yeah, I just wanted to quickly add, I think it touched on the international perspective. It'd be quite interesting to learn. Certainly, each different areas will have different demographics, to touch on the learnings from that, to showcase the potential and the opportunities and the learnings we can take forward as well. And certainly investment is an area that needs a lot of focus on, there needs to be a lot of test beds and opportunities to collaborate with each other as well.
Great, thank you very much. This has really been a very rich discussion. We want to thank you, and thanks to also to those online, our chairs, and our discussants and participants. And yeah, I'd like to give maybe the floor of last minute a wrap up from Reem.
Okay, thank you, Yara. I think this was a good final discussion to give some recommendations on what we would like to see for brain positive cities. Of course, the notion of One Health or planetary health is interesting, but our idea, at least within the brain capital and brain economy, is to go beyond health. So health becomes, I would say, from a residual into an economic function, into much more an investment, an asset. And this is what we want. So for health to become an asset, or brain health to become an asset, then you need to infuse it with appropriate neurocognitive skills. So then it becomes brain capital, and then we can design what I call the multiplier within the function, where when you increase 1 unit of health or brain health, it also means that we have cognitive reserves, better executive function into our economic decisions, and then it could enhance positively the productivity. And this is what we would like to see for our economies. I know it's not only a matter of productivity, but also beyond productivity, we can have a much higher value in terms of well-being. So I'm an economist, so I don't want wishful thinking. I want to see numbers. And this is why when we started this journey with our colleagues, neuroscientists, Harris mainly, and others, we said, look, it's nice to have neuroscience. Neuroscience is important because we can get inputs into our understanding and knowledge on what is really needed for us to factor in to improve our economic thinking with some science coming from different disciplines. But what is key for me is to translate this into an acceptable measure which really makes an impact, right? And this is what we want to enter into public policy. I agree with Karma on non-silos, and I agree. So this is the idea of brain capital, is no silos. So we cannot think about education and health separately. We need to think of them hand in hand. Why? Because within the life cycle, we build our brain capabilities, not only because we are healthy or unhealthy, because that, it's a matter of eventually diagnosis, treatment, and prevention. But also we develop our cognitive capabilities over the lifespan. And this is your school, this is the families, this is the school, this is the workplace. And all of this have to be hand in hand without any disruptions over the life cycle. So I think for us, brain positive cities is a territorial issue, means that we need to think of a city as an infrastructure which will enhance our capabilities to flourish as a human being. And this is central to a human-based approach, which we want to see. Of course, there are several nexuses that we need to look at. The nexus with climate, health and climate, the nexus with digital, also beyond health, as I mentioned, skills in this case. But obviously, all of this, we need to look at it within a governance framework, governance at the global, at regional, at national, and at city and regional level. And these are all have to be coordinated to be able to make a difference. And this is what we are trying to move. So it's really to mainstream this thinking at all levels of an economy. So it means that even in work policy, this has to be mainstreamed at a level of at the level of the workplace. And these are all work in progress. So thank you very much for this really insightful discussion. As Yara mentioned, this is only one-off now, but we will continue our discussions for the next events that we will co-organize with our collaborators. So what we will do afterward, we will have a report to be drafted by my colleagues here at EMEA. And then our idea is to have a document. I call it declaration, but I don't know. We'll see what we call it at a point in time. We'll draft it. So with really what we see, what we recommend, and what we want to see, which are the experiences and so on from all the wealth of information that we have collected today. And then this will help us to support the launching of these brain positive initiatives with the WEF in Davos 27, so in January 27. And this is also some document that will be published on our website and also on Global Brain Economy Initiative. And we will inform, of course, all of you to keep you within the ecosystem that we are trying to create within Barcelona, Catalonia, and Spain and beyond. So thank you very, very much for your time. I know that the room was amazingly warm, which okay, which is fine. This is climate, and then we thank you all for your patience and looking forward to see you again. Thank you. Thank you also, Pierluigi. Everybody else who has been with us connected. So great. And hopefully to see you all in Barcelona some other time.
Absolutely.
Thank you very
so
much. Thank you.
Bye-bye.